Let's explore a situation at the border post. According to economists and freight associations, the unrest in Mozambique that led to the closure of the Lebombo border post is costing truckers and the economy billions. Let's get more insights as we speak to Barbara Mommen, who's the spokesperson for the South African Road Transport Association. Barbara, good to have you on the program this evening, despite the situation. Can you provide an overview of the current situation at the Lebombo border post and what factors are causing this prolonged closure?
So it's largely as a result of the violent protests that have occurred, and specifically at Rosana Garcia, which has really been in place since Tuesday. So we've had a huge loss of continuity to supply chains moving out of the port of Maputo and exports into Mozambique. The impact is significant. Just a day of poor flow can actually cost the country, or both countries, and we have to think of this regionally, tens of millions of rand. And I think that's been the case. We've seen very little movement apart from empty vehicles, as Dr. Masiapata said. Empty vehicles coming back in. So very little has moved. The impact is enormous, I think, because not only for the mining companies, we've got lots of fast-moving consumer goods moving into Mozambique, and small businesses as well as informal traders all depend very much on the movement of those goods to keep their businesses alive. Informal traders on both sides of the border constitute an enormous contribution to the economy. And if there's no trade, they're the worst hit, I would imagine. And obviously, from a major company, a minerals export point of view, those supply chains are competing internationally. And where you have a loss of predictability and efficiency, your competitiveness is compromised hugely. So to try and get that back on track, even if it has been just a few days out of kilter, is quite something. We're very, very encouraged by the news that there's been so much work done to open the border again, and I believe that the Mozambican government has assured travellers and truckers as well of military and police escorts to the port. I think there's still a sense of nervousness around movement of cargo because of how violently certain vehicles were attacked and burned and looted. And so we're hoping that it will normalise as soon as possible. It's not good for the region. It's not good for the economies of Mozambique or South Africa. And the region has to deal with these setbacks. And we prefer not to have this kind of raised risk. But in the same breath, we don't want to underplay how important and complex and certainly difficult the issues are that are being dealt with by Mozambique with these public uprisings. But I think we've had experience of the similar things in South Africa, in Durban, where the lines are blurred a little bit between, activism and then anarchy. So not ideal, but very encouraged by the fact that organisations, public and private sector, are working together to sort it out.
You say the situation is not ideal, also describing it as having a significant impact to the industry. But given the ongoing election unrest that we are seeing in Mozambique, what would you say are other challenges that transporters are facing, specifically at the Lebombo border post?
Well, I think the major issue is the risk. And really what you want for a supply chain is to have the predictability and the continuity. You don't need to have disruptions because that costs adds costs to the commodities, no matter what they are. And as I said, with the international supply chains, we lose enormous credibility if we constantly apologising and saying, well, sorry, we late or late shipped or short shipped. If ships are waiting, that demurrage is significant. I think it's over $100,000 a day. But fortunately, I don't think we're in that position at the moment. What we're hoping is that the situation will normalise so that we obviously avoid that kind of situation where we short shipping to India or the Far East, whatever committed commodity, and then also that we are still enabling businesses to function normally, because the bottom line is that the poor never win in this situation, no matter if they're the ones protesting. It's the issue is that those with access continue to have that access, and we need to be so sure that our supply chains work so that the economic benefits of trade, which are huge, can accrue to all the people on the corridor.
Barbara, as we conclude, of course there have been developments with the partial reopening of the Lebombo border post, but are there any foreseeable solutions or even actions that your association and your partners can take to really prevent similar disruptions from impacting trade routes in the future?
Well, I think there's got to be a raised level of dialogue bilaterally amongst the governments. And also some of that responsibility clearly lies with SADC, who is the regional body responsible for trade. And I think most of what we're dealing with here is an uncertainty, and certainly I don't think even the government of Mozambique was prepared for it. The corridor certainly wasn't, although I think strategically it's been a very important route to disrupt because of how important it is to the region. But I think the level of engagement and constant communication between stakeholders, both at sort of bilateral, trilateral and SADC level, has got to be escalated and kept going much more seriously. And the response times have to be shortened. We can't wait a whole week for statements to be made. And unfortunately, that has been the situation. We would prefer to see quite a lot more responsiveness from governments, and particularly also from the regional economic community.